like write some stuff because I don't play guitar. And then Tima, who's great, and then the artist is going to be in tomorrow. So that's like a 4-person session. So yeah, I mean, typically what we do is, we'll be writing the song and then I'll be producing it as we're writing, And then once the track gets to a good enough place that we feel, strong about, like at least, okay, this is the structure, this is like kind of the main instrumentation, then I'll have the artist usually lay down a vocal, or some vocals, and then we'll structure out more, build around it more, and then usually try to finish it after that with like harmonies and backgrounds. And then inevitably they'll leave and then I'll work on it for like another while or another day or two until I feel like it's like, oh, okay, this is done. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's just that day. Sometimes I'll go back to it in 3 days or 4 days and I'll finish it up. It just depends on the situation and how much we got done in the session, But for example, yesterday's session was great with my friend Brooke and Kevin as well. And I mean, I got the whole thing done in the day. I mean, it was done. Like, I listened back this morning. I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to touch this production unless they have any tweaks, So, so sometimes that happens too,
Yeah. Wow. And even like vocals are done. Like that's it.
Yeah. I mean, Brooke
like,
is
day of.
amazing. So like, it definitely depends on the vocalist and artist, but like Brooke is definitely one of the most talented vocalists and writers that I've ever met in my life. She's just so gifted that I can do that with her. Not everybody can do that. You know what I mean? But, a lot of times people that are doing it for a living with artists and they're used to at least getting a pretty solid keeper vocal take, even if they go back and do harmonies and backgrounds like later at the home studio, a pretty solid lead vocal at least for the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm fluid. If they want to take it home or take another studio and record vocals with their engineer, that's fine too. But a lot of times I'm doing that the day of, yeah.
Wow. And so are these tracks that you're writing, producing, are they getting released as like from that with that artist person, like to Spotify usually or
yeah.
Does it get pitched around to different artists? What's usually happening?
Yeah, it depends on the session, but since I do a lot of artist sessions, it's usually going to be coming out with that artist, hopefully, or landing on their record.
Amazing.
It's different. Like tomorrow, the artist is with Sony. So, hopefully we do a great song and her A&R loves it and then it goes on the record. That's a whole process with that. If she's an independent artist, it's a lot different. It's like, oh, I love this song, I'm just going to put it out. You know what I mean? Which is great too, because it's like, I've had really big success doing that. I've gotten tons of crazy playlists just from being just from having an independent artist release a song and they get a bunch of their Spotify playlists. And I've gotten the other way too, when a label really believes in the song and they start pushing it, So it just really depends.
Yeah. Well, but what's like left after that? Like, is it being sent off to mixing? Is it just your mix, how you did it?
Oh, no, it'll get, if it'll get mixed. I mean, it just depends. Again, the situation. I mix a lot of the stuff that I work on. Just because like when I'm producing, I'm kind of like pre-mixing it as it goes. And a lot of times,
sure,
the artist will be like, oh, this already sounds good. Can you just finish it? You know what I mean? Basically. And they, it's like, oh yeah, sure. Or they like, oh no, this is my mix guy. Like, can we get stems to him or her? You know what I mean? And then I'll send stems to that person, so it really just depends on the artist,
Right. And then eventually it'll get
mastered and then released, yeah.
I can't even imagine doing a whole song in a day. That sounds like...
Oh, really? That's like my everyday, yes.
I think I need to learn from you because I feel like when you're doing, you're probably so fast at it, like, doing it every single day. It's just like rinse and repeat. You just like, it's like almost like the Wrecking Crew or like, like or like Motown of like, let's just do this.
Yeah.
We got all the pieces we need right here, like right now. Like I could do a production fast. Like I could get the skeleton of a production like in maybe 3 to 4 hours usually.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
And then like, I don't know, maybe I'm just too pedantic with vocals and taking a little bit of time to be objective. Like maybe it's just, I need to like, okay, we're done.
Yeah. Well,
or I need to like feel like I'm justifying the price that I'm charging to
right. Yeah, it's like, oh, it should take longer. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, almost. I feel like that. Yeah,
I feel that though. I mean, sometimes I feel like that. It's like, oh, like if everybody's feeling good about it, and like, it's like, what's the fee again? It's like, well, I mean, it's if it's great, it's great though. A great song can come in 2 hours and it can come in 2 weeks or 2 months. It just, you can't really quantify that kind of thing because it is definitely. It's art, you know what I mean? So, but also I will credit that, I'm mostly on the production side, right? Like I have amazing songwriters that do it every day, like Brooke and Tima and just to name a couple, Elle, and they do it every day just like I produce every day. So they're used to like, oh, they're not questioning, they're just going. And then I'll throw in, maybe we tweak this melody here, or maybe this lyric could be cool here instead, like small stuff like that. And they're great too. So it's like, it really is about having like that team of people that you trust. Because it's like a lot of times my manager would say like, hey, I have this artist, blah, blah, blah. Do you have a writer for it? It's like, I'm going to bring in the people that I know that is going to get the job done that day. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I try to stick to my crew of people that I love so much because it's like, I know they're crazy talented. I know they're going to deliver, and I know we all lock in. So the only X factor is, okay, what does the artist want then? You know what I mean? Because like if we already kind of vibe in a session, you know, that's the most important thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But in terms of like songwriting credit, like does everybody take equal shares usually, or does that depend on the song?
It depends on the song, but if we're all in the room together, if there's 4 people, usually I try to get 25% all around, you know? It can change sometimes if it's like a major label artist. You know what I mean? Then it's just like sometimes they're going to want more publishing on the back end. You know, it definitely depends, but 99% of the time, if we're all in the room together, then it's usually split 3, 4, 5 ways, however many people in the session. Usually that's what we gun for. It's just like even splits all around, you know?
Yeah. Can I ask you like candidly, like feel free to not answer or tell me to ask something else, but is like a decent amount of your living coming already off of the back end of these songwrites? Like is like streaming royalties and songwriting, like is that like a big part of your?
It's mostly production fees. It's mostly production fee. I mean, the back end's not bad. Don't get me wrong. It helps. You know what I mean? But I don't make my food living off of royalties. You know what I mean? I make some money off that. You know how it is. It's like a hodgepodge of things, but it's mostly.
Sure.
I mean, I got an advance from my publisher, obviously, to live on. You know what I mean? So that helps. But then also, as a producer, it's great because like I get a production fee if somebody wants to release a song. You know what I mean? So then I have my production fee on top of that. So I mostly live off of production fees and then my publishing advance. That's the 2 things that pay the bills. You know, and if I didn't have my publishing advance, it would just be production fees. You know what I mean? So it's like it's just whatever's
life is I'm sure really expensive in LA.
Yes, yeah, and I'm
you got
moving
bills
too.
to pay.
And like my expenses about to go up. I'm moving in like a week and a half to a new house and a new studio. So.
Oh, nice. Good luck.
Thanks,
You're gonna,
man. Yeah.
A whole new build out.
Yeah, it's gonna be tight.
Oh, amazing. Well, good luck with the move and everything. So any other like I guess insights on your workflow when it comes to like production? You know, what are you thinking about when you first hear a song? Like, what's the first thing that you
the first thing I hear is when somebody brings me a song or they start doing just like a lot of times it'll start with me just like either have like a loop, you know, of just like chords or like a cool little thing. Or the artist will bring in like just a melody and I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Let's find chords that work with this and whatnot. The first thing I'm going for is really like, I'm going to ask the artist, like, what's your project? Like, what are you going for? Like, what's the vibe? You know, and after they say that, usually the first thing I think of is like, okay, melodically, what is the main instrument here? Is it going to be guitar? Is it going to be a keyboard? Is it going to be, you know what I mean? Some other weird thing, you know? And then right after that, I go to like the drum sounds because I feel like to me, so much of modern music is made up of like the drums you use. You know, like you can put the same drums on a hip hop song and put them on another, you know, whatever other song. And it's like, it doesn't feel right or vice versa. You know, it's same patterns and everything. So to me, the next thing I think of after the first, okay, what's the first melodic thing we're going to be using here? Like the song's language, quote unquote, I like to say is like the main melodic element of either it's guitar or keyboard or whatever that's going to be. That's like the main language of the song. And then after that,
like you mean drums. Like the harmonic, like the chord structures,
a chord structure, and then the chord structure, and then actually what is it going to be played on, right? Is it going to be a guitar? Is it going to be a keyboard? Is it going to be a synth? Is it going to be a Juno? You know what I mean? Like what's the vibe of that? Of those chords, you know, because you could put it on a Juno, it's going to sound completely different than if you pluck it on a guitar. If you're like, what's the vibe of like that? You know, that's probably the most important thing because that's going to lead me in the direction of what kind of drums are going to be using on this record, what kind of vocal effects, what kind of, you know what I mean? Like all those things play a role into, okay, what's the vibe that we're going to be chasing today, you know?
Sure.
That and I feel like me learning so much from hip hop and from rap music because I just love hip hop music so much and I bring so much of that into what I do. You know, you watch those tutorials and I just learn they don't second guess stuff a lot. They just go, you know, and they try to
go with your gut.
They go with the gut and then you can change it later, you know, but like, and I'm a minimalist. Like if you listen to my productions, you can tell like it's put a lot in there on purpose. It's the right things at the right times doing the hopefully the thing that's elevating the vocal, you know? So my whole thing is like, okay, what's the least amount of things I can put in a song and still make it feel dope, right? You know, so
yes, I love that.
I'm just like going with my gut and then I'm editing as I go. Like, so in sessions, I'm just like, try this, try that. Okay, I'm going to mute that. Okay, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to use this thing, but I'm going to pitch it up an octave in this section because it's the same instrument, but it'll feel different. You know what I mean? So like, I'm like, a lot of times I'm just like, just trying to think of my feet as fast as I can, what feels good. And then once the vocal's like really done, then you can kind of feel like, oh, okay, this part is actually the pre, this is actually the hook. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to get a bunch of things down at the beginning of the session that feel good, you know?
Yeah, totally. Also, I love the minimal approach. I feel like I'm working on a production now that's like so minimal. I'm like, wow, there's only 28 tracks, but it feels huge, and it's like you can make things just sound much bigger when there's less things in the way.
Yep.
You know, like when I was listening to your music, like let's say like the bass is massive. It's like, okay, because there's room for that bass to be massive. You know, like
that's the thing is like when I have like a heavy 808 in there, which I love to use big subs and 808s. It's like, dude, if there's it's not going to sound good if you don't leave room for that. You know what I mean? So if you have like 10 keyboards going at the same time, there's not going to be any room for that you know what I mean? But if you have the right part doing the right thing, and it's just like 2 keyboard parts and a guitar, and then all you need is like a great drum, you know what I mean? And in a sub, like that's all you need, you know? Like a lot of times my tracks can really be brought down to guitars, drums, some kind of bass element, and then like a couple keyboards, you know what I mean? And like those are really the main elements of what's happening here. Maybe things come in and out, you know, like little things, like twinkles of things to kind of keep the production moving. But at the base of everything I do, that's usually like the 4 or 5 things that really I'm really focused on, you know?
Yeah. Well, something I noticed about your most recent productions is there's like a lot of rock elements happening, and you're combining it really well with pop sounds. And actually, this episode hasn't aired now that we're talking, but it will by the time I release your episode.
Yeah.
I actually brought back another former guest, Derek Atwater, and we were also talking about this trend of like how rock music is just kind of creeping back into pop music now.
Yeah.
And this production I was just talking to you about earlier, also, like I thought she was going for like a total pop vibe, and then all the pop music is just guitars, like Olivia Rodrigo. Like what's going on here?
I know. I kind of love it.
Yeah, of course you love it because this is what we grew up on. I feel like us mid-30s people, not to date us too much, but like. This is like we grew up in this kind of rock era, and then music completely turned pop as we reached adulthood, and like bands are no more. But now it's like so fun and refreshing to see, you know, rock kind of creep up. Anyways, I really think that you're doing a great job of combining the rock and the pop.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, do you have like an approach or anything you're thinking about when you're doing that?
Well, it's funny because like I've always kind of had that in the back of my mind because that's where I grew up playing pop punk. So even like when it wasn't cool, I was still putting elements of that in there, maybe just not on guitar, you know, just something like a riff or something that was like, oh, that's kind of like a pop punk riff, but like it's just like hidden on a keyboard, you know what I mean? But like now it's actually on a guitar again, you know? I guess I'm not really like, for me, I always just feel like guitars fit in any production. So I'm just trying to find the right part, usually with whoever's playing guitar that day, that's going to be fitting around a lot. I mean, to me, see, I hear music on I don't play guitar, but I hear music on guitar. Like when somebody sings something, I'm automatically thinking of like guitar chords and guitar rhythms and not keyboard. Even though I grew up on bass and keyboards, I just automatically hear things on guitar, and that's me coming from a rock band background, probably. Like, you know what I mean? So
totally.
For me, it's always starts on guitar. Like, so a lot of times I'll usually always have a guitar player in my sessions. Or the artist plays guitar or whatever it is, because I'm like, oh, let's plunk something out on the guitar, even if it's not the main instrument. Let's try to work it out on guitar first. And then recently, we've just been keeping that because it's been so in trend right now. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, cool, that palm muting eighth note thing sounds good because that's just like what's cool right now. You know what I mean? So yeah, I've been just doing that. But I mean, as far as like combining the two, I feel like I wish there was more thought process to it, but it does kind of happen naturally for me, only because, like I said, I'm such a huge hip hop fan, and I grew up playing pop punk, and I grew up, you know what I mean? So for me in my brain, it does all work together, even though maybe it shouldn't. In my head, it's like, oh yeah, I can combine these things. All I have to do is take this here and take that there and kind of mesh this 808 with that guitar part, and now it's done. You know what I mean? So I don't know, like I am really a product of what I listen to, because I remember growing up in pop punk bands, like my band members would make fun of me for listening like Kanye West, and I thought it was like the coolest shit. You know what I mean? Like, and now it's cool, like to know those two things. And I guess back then I was just like, I love those two things so much that I never thought about it. I just love those two words so much, and I never thought about them combining before. You know?
Yeah. And I'm assuming it's not any different than a keyboard in terms of like, you know, mixing or, you know, you just do what you do with a guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just like, I hear things and I just, different rhythms and things like that. And I was just like, oh, let's put that there and let's just try this and let's try that here. I feel like a lot of syncopated guitars are coming back as well. Like not just like eighth notes, but a lot of like stop and go guitars, if you notice,
yeah.
And so, which is
the
cool.
Dua Lipa record had a lot of that funk guitar stuff.
Exactly.
And I don't know if you listen to Corey Wong. He's amazing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And he's kind of, I think,